Peace be upon you, brothers and sisters. This is Saeed Mirza from WillNotReason.com, and in today's video, I wanted to look at the Kaaba, the idol of the religion of Islam, and I wanted to show you that there is no justification for taking this thing as something to be revered, something to focus your prayer towards, or to think that this thing is of any importance, because the fact of the matter is that it is an idol, and Muslims make a big fuss about the Hindus worshiping statues and their idols, their murtis, but at the same time they are blind to them worshiping the same thing. Just because it doesn't have any hands and feet doesn't mean it's not an idol. You have the cross, which is an idol for the Christians, and that's a symbol. And in the same sense, you have the Kaaba, which is a cube stone idol that is also a symbol. Now, all the sort of disputes and arguments aside of what this thing is it like a representation of a female goddess, or the Arabs used to worship this before Islam came, and all that stuff, and that it housed 360 idols. I'm not going to get into that because, again, that's history, and that's suspect. What I want to look at is the Quran. The Quran has very stark warnings about not following our ancestors blindly, and the Quran is a complete and preserved and clear guidance. And if the Quran is not giving you a specific action or a specific ritual, then if you are doing those rituals, then you cannot say that you are following the book of God. Because the fact of the matter is that a lot of Muslims in the Quran alone sphere, they understand that the hadiths are fabricated and they reject them. But when it comes to following their ancestors blindly, they're still continuing on with the rituals that they inherited. And especially the Hajj, they think that going to the Makkah in Saudi Arabia and doing this ritual circling around the Kaaba, which is the defining sort of highlight of these Hajj ritual, circling the Kaaba 7 times, that is somehow sanctioned by God in the Quran. And I will be looking at verses in the Quran where you will see that those verses are not sanctioning circling a stone cube idol 7 times anywhere. The 7 times thing, this is not in the Quran. This is verifiable. And you might be able to twist the meanings of the words in the Quran and be able to justify certain practices in the Hajj ritual, but the 7 times is not in the Quran. This is the defining highlight of the Hajj and the Umrah rituals. And I know because I've done this stuff before. So I've seen it, I've done it, I know what I'm talking about. And the Quran gives us stark warnings to not follow our ancestors blindly. This is from the Quran, a Complete Revelation by Brother Sam Garens, which you can download from Quranic.com, or you can follow along on reader.Quranic.com. So this is chapter 31 and verses 21 onwards. And when it is said to them, follow what God has sent down, they say, nay, we will follow that upon which we found our fathers, even though the Satan invites them to the punishment of the inferno. And whoso submits his face to God and is a doer of good, he has grasped the most firm handhold, and to God is the final outcome of matters. So this was chapter 31, verses 21 and 22. Let's look at another passage here in the Quran. This is chapter 37, verse 68 onwards. Then will their return be to hell. They found their fathers astray, and in their footsteps are they hastening. And most of the former peoples had gone astray before them, and we had sent among them warners. So see thou how was the final outcome of those who were warned. Save the sincere servants of God. And so this is chapter 37, verses 69 through 74. I do encourage you to look at these verses and look at the context as well. Don't just take my word for this blindly. Look into this. This is a very serious matter to say that God sanctioned the worshiping or revering a stone idol. Because the Kaaba does not only play a role in the Hajj ritual, Muslims direct their prayers towards this cube, this stone cube idol, right? They submit to it, they do sajda, and this direction is called the Qibla. And this direction, the Qibla, is also how the Muslims slaughter the animal. They face the animal in that direction to the Kaaba. And when Muslims bury their dead, they do the same thing. They face the corpse, the body, in the direction of the Kaaba. So this is not just, an isolated thing. This is part and parcel of the religion of Islam. This is, you have to accept that thing is somehow sacred, and that it is our duty to go there and to circle this thing 7 times. Now, I have been there. I have seen it with my own eyes, how Muslims, in their frenzy, when they're circling the stone cube, they fight over each other to go and kiss a special stone in the corner of the Kaaba, which is called the Hajj al-Aswad. I've seen all this, and I've seen the sort of the pagan fever that goes on there. So this is a serious matter. Again, I come back to, if you believe that the Quran alone is complete, preserved, and sufficient, and the Quran is not giving you any specificity as far as the Hajj ritual, in the sense that you're supposed to circle a stone cube 7 times. The Quran doesn't say 7 times. This is a fact. So if God is leaving that out, that means that this ritual was for a limited time and place, and when the Quranic revelation was being sent down, whatever this thing is, whether it was a ritual, whether it was a conference, whether it was a festival, whatever it was, the people at that time knew what it was, and obviously they did it. But that time is gone. You cannot say even with certainty that the Masjid al-Haram in the Quran is the Masjid al-Haram which the Saudis claim to be in Mecca, and the Baytul Atiq, the antique house, the ancient house in the Quran, is that Kaaba. And besides all that, Muslims again seem to be forgetting that the Quran is complete and is preserved. And so if the Quran is not giving you these guidelines, then for our intents and purposes, we cannot perform this thing, and that's fine. There are other things you can do. To be so hung up on this Hajj ritual that if they think you can't do this, then it's over. There's a lot of things you can do. It also said in the Quran that have you taken the serving of water to the pilgrims as one who struggles in God's cause, who fights in God's cause. They're not equal. So we have a higher calling here. Now let's look at some verses in the Quran that talk about the Hajj, the pilgrimage. And I've treated this subject in much more detail in another video, and I'll link to that video so you can look at it and you can see all the verses in the Quran that talk about Hajj. But here I'm just going to give you a little bit of a snapshot. So this is chapter 22, and we're going to start at verse 26. And when we settled for Abraham the position of the house, okay, the Bait, ascribe thou not a partnership with me to anything, and purify thou my house for those who walk around. Okay, the Taifin, which is the word tawaf, which the Muslims claim to mean circling the Kaaba 7 times. Here this is a general word. Taifin, for those who walk around, and those who stand, and the lowly and the submitting. Now you can make a case that walaku was sajudi. It's talking about bowing and prostrating. Even if that's the case, the word tawaf just means to walk around, walk about, and to take that and make it into a very specific ritualistic movement around a stone cube idol, 7-time movement, that's not doing justice with the text. Okay, verse 27. And proclaim thou among the mankind the pilgrimage. They will come to thee on foot, and on every lean mount they will come from every deep mountain pass, that they might witness benefits for them, and remember the name of God on days appointed over their provision of livestock, cattle. So eat therefore thereof, and feed the unfortunate poor. So this is the goal of this Hajj, that men might witness the benefits, which is that God gave him all these things and gave him the cattle, and that those cattle are slaughtered and the people are fed with it. Verse 29. Then let them make an end of their unkemptness, and fulfill their vows, and walk around the ancient house. Now see again, وَلْيَطَوَفُوا بِالْبَيْتِ الْعَتِيقِ. And this word, this is a form 5. If you go to reader.quranic.com, you can actually look at the Arabic grammar, and this is chapter 22, verse 29. You look at the Arabic grammar, and it tells you that this is a form 5, okay? And the root is toy, wow, fa, and the form is yatawaffa. And you can cross-reference this with Lane's lexicon. And also what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you where another instance of this word, where that is used. Um, this is just a general word that means to walk around, okay, as in visit. Doesn't mean a ritualistic 7 times circling of anything, okay? Okay, so then let them make an end of the unkemptness and fulfill their vows and walk around the ancient house. That, and whoso honors the sacred things of God, it is better for him in the sight of his Lord. And the cattle are lawful to you, save that recited to you, and avoid the abomination of idols, and avoid false speech. So this is you can read more of these verses. It goes a little bit further. The tokens of God are the camels and the cows, and we are supposed to be avoiding the abomination of idols. So the whole idea is that don't fall into idol worship, which is exactly what the Muslims are doing in this under the cover of this Hajj. Okay, let's look at another one. Chapter 2, verse 158. Al-Safa and Al-Marwa are among the tokens of God. So whoso made pilgrimage to the house or visited, he did no wrong to walk around between them. And whoso does good voluntarily, God is grateful and knowing. So this is the same word, yatawaffa bihima, to walk around between them. And so this word is only used twice. This form is only used twice in the Quran, and in both instances. And the first one is talking about walking around the ancient house, and the second one is talking about walking around these 2 tokens of God, Al-Safa and Al-Marwa. Now I know Muslims say, okay, the Al-Safa and Al-Marwa, these two locations, stones or whatever. It's almost like a hill, mountain sort of thing, and it's enclosed, and it's all air conditioned. I've been there, so I've seen it and I've done it. So it's enclosed in a sort of an AC environment, and the pilgrims circle those 7 times, and there's a story attached to that, something about Abraham leaving his child and his wife circling and finding water. I don't know the exact specific details of this story, and I don't really care for it, but there's a whole backstory behind this as well, a myth, if you will. So we don't know what Al-Safa and Al-Marwa are, honestly, at this day and age. The people in the time of the revelation, they knew what it was, and these are considered the tokens of God. But besides that, what I'm trying to say to you is that this whole ritual that's been constructed, the stoning of the devil, the 7 stonings of the devil, this 777, this is a very pagan number. If you know anything about pagan religions, I encourage you to look at Hinduism and their practices. Again, if you go back to that video that I created, I'll put a link in the drop down box below. I go into much more detail about these things, about these rituals. The 7 thing is very significant. Now, let's look at the idea of the Qibla, and the claim of the Muslims that when you do the Salat, which they say is a ritual prayer, and certainly in the Quran, there are many places where it says to remember God and glorify Him, and to set up a timed duty, because the word salat means duty. And if you want more information of this, I suggest you look at Brother Gant's work. That obviously it is our duty to worship God. Nobody is debating that. But to worship Him in a specific manner, in a specific ritualistic movement, in a specific direction, this again is not in the Quran, because the Quran is concerned with internals. It's not concerned with externals. Okay? If your heart is sincere, if you are submitting to God and worshiping Him, glorifying Him, then that is what's required. This whole action thing is secondary, but Muslims have turned it upside down. Anyway, so the Qibla, right? Let's look in the Quran for where this command comes, that you should be facing a stone idol in Makkah, Saudi Arabia, and that direction is called the Qibla. So I'm going to read to you chapter 2 verse 142. And I do encourage you to look at the context. This this chapter is really big, and there's a context behind this. um, so let's start. Chapter 2 verse 142. The foolish among mankind will say, what has turned them from their course? Okay, what has turned them from their Qibla? Okay, which they were on. So what has turned them from their course which they were on? Say thou, to God belongs the east and the west. He guides whom he wills to a straight path. And thus we made you an intermediary community, that you might be witnesses to mankind, and that the messenger might be a witness to you. And we made not the course which thou wast on, save that we might know him who follows the messenger from him who turns on his heels. And it is hard, save for those whom God has guided, and God would not cause your faith to be lost. God is towards mankind and merciful. Now, the context according to Muslims, because they take these verses and then they look in the Hadith literature. Well, Muslims obviously don't look at the Hadith literature, but this is what you get when you go to a sheikh and you tell him, okay, this is what does this mean? He'll pull up some hadiths and he'll say, oh, this verse was revealed when Muhammad was leading the prayer and they were facing the Jerusalem. Okay, and now when this verse was revealed, they turned about and they started praying the other direction. And so this was the test that during the Salat movement, whoever didn't turn, this was the test. They failed the test. So this is the story that he will give you. But what is it saying here? That Muhammad was being now directed towards changing his focus of proselytizing, of calling men towards the faith, which is what Ibrahim was doing in the Hajj. Muhammad was being tasked to go and towards the Masjid al-Haram and proclaim the faith over there. This is what it's saying. And I'm not using the Hadith literature. I'm just using, my brain and looking at the Quran, at the context. This is verse 144. We have seen the turning of thy face towards the sky, and we will turn thee towards a course that will satisfy thee. So direct thou thy face towards the inviolable place of worship, towards the Masjid al-Haram. And wheresoever you be, direct your faces towards it. And those given the writ know that it is the truth from their Lord, and God is not unmindful of what they do. And if thou bring those given the writ every proof, they will not follow thy course, they will not follow thy Qibla, neither wilt thou follow their course, nor will they follow each other's course. And if thou follow their vain desires after what has come to thee of knowledge, thou wilt then be of the wrongdoers. Those to whom we gave the writ recognize it as they recognize their sons, but a faction among them conceals the truth when they know. The truth is from thy Lord, so be thou not of those who doubt. And for each is a direction towards which he turns. So vie with one another in good deeds. Wherever you be, God will bring you all together. God is over all things powerful. And from wheresoever thou goest out, direct thou thy face towards the inviolable place of worship. And it is the truth from thy Lord, and God is not unmindful of what you do. And from wheresoever thou goest out, direct thou thy face towards the inviolable place of worship. And wheresoever you be, direct your face towards it, that men might have no argument against you, save those who do wrong among them. So fear them not, but fear me, and that I might complete my favor upon you, and that you might be guided. This was the last verse in this context, verse 150. So the usage of this word Qibla and the command again and again to turn your face towards the inviolable place of worship, and you can see that there's a play in the usage of that to God belongs the east and the west, and that the people of the book, they know that it's the truth, and they do not follow each other's Qibla. This points to this word Qibla as being a general word. And this is why the Quran God is using it in this manner, and that's all it is. It's just a direction that at the time of the Quranic revelation, Prophet Muhammad was being directed to move there, to go and proselytize there. The fact of the matter is that you can look at this whole context, you can look at this whole piece, this whole block, and you will not even find any indication of salat It's not saying to do salat and turn your face. It doesn't say the word salat is missing. It's not in this whole context, this whole block of text, which again has means that the salat has nothing to do with the qibla. The salat is just because this is how the religion of Islam operates. So they use these words and they give them very specific meanings, and then they say, oh look, this is what the qibla is here, the salat is here, the muezzin means one who does the azan. He calls on the mosques in the Muslim countries, they do the azan 5 times a day. And the word muezzin, as used in the Quran, means the caller on the day of judgment. So this is the kind of games that the Muslims play with the Quran, and they twist the meanings of the words in the Quran, which is not anything new. The Quran already says that the Jews were doing something similar. Now I wanted to look at something else here, the word Qibla, since I got thinking about this, because this word Qibla is also used in the context of the time when Moses was being persecuted, and Moses and the community of believers, they were being persecuted by Pharaoh, and what God said to them was that you should make your houses a Qibla. So I wanted to look at this one as well, because I think it, just to kind of round off the argument here, it's important that we look at that as well. Just bear with me, I'm going to look it up here. Okay, so a destination is sort of the key word here that I know. Okay, here you go, chapter 10, verse 87. And we instructed Moses and his brother, settle your people in Egypt in houses and make your houses a destination. Okay? وَجْعَلُوا بُيُوتُكُمْ قِبْلَةً. Okay, make your houses a qibla, make your houses a destination, and uphold the duty, and bear thou glad tidings to the believers. So this is verse 10 and chapter 10, verse 87. Look at the context here as well. How can you make your houses a qibla? There is only one qibla, right? So it could be make your house a qibla, but it doesn't say that. It says make your houses a qibla, which means it's a destination, it's a place of refuge, it's a place where the believers are supposed to come together. And this is what the Masjid al-Haram was. It was a qibla. It was for the Muslims to gather, to assemble, to coalesce. Now, again, if this is the directive, this is what the Muslims need to be doing, then that means that the faithful need to all coalesce. They need to all come together, not just for Hajj and Umrah, to go live there. I will eat my hat if the Saudis allow any of that, because as you know, the Saudi kingdom is corrupt, and the Hajj ritual, it's just a money-making scam. It's just a scheme, and that's all there is to it. It's nothing to do with God's commandment. And again, the Quran was revealed to all of mankind. And in this day and age, you're better off just struggling and fighting in the cause of God, fighting your own self, and trying to abstain from the enormities of sin and falsehood, and to just stay sane in this insanity. This is the struggle that we are on right now. It's not for us to go and do jihad or do Hajj and all the other stuff that Muslims are so keen on doing. What is required is that we become men of God, in that we teach and study the law and be patient and direct each other towards compassion, towards patience, and to await the day, which is not far, it's very near. So I hope this video was some use to you. Please do check out the video that I linked to below, in which I go into more detail on the Hajj ritual according to the Quran, and you will see that this is an idol, and it's not an abstract idol. It's a real idol that Muslims repair towards, face towards, and they think that somehow God commanded them to do sajda to it and revere it, when if you read the whole narrative of Abraham in the Quran, you will see that he was against idol worship, and he even asked his people, what are these idols, what are these images, uh, that you are devoted to. So devoting yourself. And the Muslims, they devote themselves to this idol. They take care of this place. They put new, a new cover on this thing, and a lot of resources are devoted towards keeping this idol up and running. Um, but it is an idol at the end of the day, and we should be staying away from these things and not following our ancestors blindly, who did not have an illuminating book, in the sense that they did not read it and they were not guided. And now that guidance has come, uh, we should follow the guidance. God willing, until next time, peace and blessings be upon you.